Thousands Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome. Now, the Reverend Nancy Arnold, our wonderful friend, will call us to worship.
Good morning. We come to this time and this place to rediscover the wondrous gift of free religious community, to renew our faith in the holiness, goodness, and beauty of life, to reaffirm the way of the open mind and full heart, to rekindle the flame of memory and hope, and to reclaim the vision of an earth made fair with all its people one. We come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment, until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see their communion, the reflection of our own eyes. This house of laughter and silence, memory and hope is hallowed by our presence here today.
I'd like to introduce the speaker right now. Nancy Arnold has been a UU minister for 31 years. Prior to retiring to Ridge, New Hampshire, 2 hours away, in 2018, Nancy served parishes in Connecticut, Ohio, and New York, and worked as a hospice chaplain for 3 years in Queens, New York. Nancy's roots in UUs are in Amherst, right here, Massachusetts, where she served as an active lay leader for 10 years before studying for the ministry. When I first came here in 1979, she was active in RE, and she joined the board, and then she became the president, and I don't know what else you were. You just did everything, right? Not finance, okay. In 1984, she graduated from UMass with Women's Studies degree. Then she went to Harvard and graduated in Harvard Divinity School before she went to Ohio. She is also a certified spiritual director and grief recovery specialist. She and her partner, Jerry, are members of the Peterborough, New Hampshire UU Church. Welcome, Nancy, and it's just wonderful to see you again.
Thank you, Carolyn. It's good to see you, too. It's good to see all of you, wherever you happen to be. There's a very present nature to Unitarian Universalism. We believe in living the best lives we can in the here and now, without the promise of an eternal reward. People enter our Unitarian Universalist congregations searching for a community in which to belong. Often, they feel as if they have arrived home for the very first time, when that community accepts them as they are. I experienced that here when I started attending in the 1970s, and I remember being so moved that I cried during most of the services for that first year. The rituals and practices of our churches transmit what Daniela Hervé-Léger calls a chain of memory. The chain of memory is where the imaginary link with the past and projection into the future are joined. Congregations are communities of memory that recall those people and times that have made us all what we are today. The many losses and changes we experience are part of the chain of memory that helps inform our future as individuals and as congregations. As Unitarian Universalists, we're uncertain of what is to come after this life, if anything. But we do believe in the power of memory. We lift up the memory of those we've loved as a way of giving their lives meaning to us in the present. We grant them immortality by keeping their memory alive in our hearts. When we love someone, they never quite leave us, even in death. The love we experience keeps them alive, and they become a part of our lives forever. Through the telling of their stories and remembering their lives, others come to know our loved ones too. But as a very present-oriented people, we may also suffer from a loss of memory. That's why it's important that we mark the passages of time as individuals, as families, and as congregations. Universalist minister Max Kutz reminds us, when holidays and holy days and such times come, when anniversaries arrive by calendar or consciousness, when seasons come as seasons do, old and known, but somehow new, when lives are born or people die, when something sacred sensed in soil or sky, mark the time. Respond with thought or prayer or smile or grief. Let nothing living slip between the fingers of the mind. For all of these are holy things we will not and cannot find again. Thanksgiving seemed a lot simpler when I was growing up. It was a day to overeat with extended family we rarely saw. We recall the story of the first Thanksgiving at Plymouth Colony. It was a time of celebration hosted by the grateful Pilgrims and the local native people who had guided them in the ways of survival in New England. Their first harvest was an occasion for prayerful gratitude and fellowship, and Thanksgiving became an annual American tradition. It was a great story, especially the part about the foreigners inviting the Native Americans who had befriended them to get together for a potluck. It made me believe that peace and respect were possible between people with disparate beliefs and experiences. I don't remember when it all changed. It may have been when a faction of our extended family, my great-aunt's second cousin and her daughter, stopped attending the family gatherings because of something judgmental my father had said, which happened fairly frequently. They were no longer welcome at the Thanksgiving table. It was the antithesis of the hospitality that bridged the divide between cultures at what is called the first Thanksgiving. For Native Americans, offering hospitality to strangers came from the belief that all of creation is to be appreciated and respected. Hospitality was a way of expressing gratitude for the gifts of the earth and its elements. We know how well that worked out for them. Native Americans believed that the earth and all life had been entrusted to them for future generations. Not content to let these native people live with gratitude for the gift of creation, the folks seeking a haven from religious oppression became oppressors themselves. Native Americans were killed, and the land which they had cherished was seized by the white foreigners. They viewed the land as a commodity, as something to be owned and used for their own benefit. Not content to let Native people live out their lives in keeping with their religious values, the foreigners sought to make them as miserable as they themselves were taught to be. The foreigners recreated their experience in England by making Native Americans religious outcasts in their own land. Puritan theology did not affirm the goodness of all people. Caring for the earth was not a part of their creation story. The autumn season is a reminder and an opportunity to listen to the prayers of the earth, and to give thanks. The memories we carry from loved ones, such as family members who are no longer at the table, are what keep them alive in our hearts. Remembering those we've loved helps us to make meaning from the life and death events of our lives. Rabbi Rami Shapiro writes, "Life and death, a twisted vine sharing a single root, a water bright green, stretching to top a twisted yellow, only to wither itself as another green unfolds overhead. One leaf atop another, yet under the next, a vibrant tapestry of arcs and falls, all in the act of becoming. Death is the passing of life, and life is the stringing together of so many little passings." Each holiday, each year, even each day, suggests many such little passings. It might be the changes we experience as we age. The departure or deaths of friends and loved ones remind us of the transiency of life, of our own lives. And remembering these people, or the people we were, gives us the opportunity to relive particular moments in time and to keep the life we share together in the present moment. American writer and theologian Frederick Buechner reminds us that memory is more than a looking back to a time that is no longer. It is looking out into another kind of time altogether, when everything that ever was continues not just to be, but to grow and change with the life that is in it still. The people we loved, the people who loved us, the people who, for good or ill, taught us things. Dead and gone though they may be, as we come to understand them in new ways, it is as though they come to understand us. And through them, we come to understand ourselves in new ways too. It is as if they carry something of us on their way, as we assuredly carry something of them on ours. That is perhaps why to think of them is a matter not only of remembering them, as they used to be, but of seeing and hearing them, as in some sense as they are now. If they had things to say to us then, they have things to say to us now, too. The memories of Thanksgiving past can leave us with a mix of emotions. Wistfulness for the traditional story we remember from childhood. Sadness, anger, guilt about what Thanksgiving signaled for Native peoples. Hope that with what we know now, we won't repeat the mistakes of the past. Grief at missing those no longer here with whom we celebrated holidays. And gratitude for the many blessings of our lives. The more accurate Thanksgiving history may arouse feelings of guilt. Guilt accounts for some of the generosity we witness in this season. The desire to make up for past transgressions by giving something of ourselves to help those less fortunate has deep roots. We may be inclined to give to worthy causes to make ourselves feel better about our lives of privilege. Gratitude for the many blessings of our lives suggests a different attitude. Gratitude grows out of our connections with one another. Gratitude is what Native Americans demonstrated with the Puritans. Gratitude is an admission that we are not self-sufficient, and we don't need to be. Our inherent worth and dignity is something we share with all the world's people as part of the interdependent web of all existence. Gratitude encourages us to be in relationship with them, with a vision of an earth made fair, with all its people one. Doing for others may make us feel better about ourselves, but being with others, with gratitude for the life we share together, acknowledges our interdependence. Living with gratitude means living out of our connections with each other. Living with gratitude points us toward what is right for us. It reveals certain truths about our lives that we may have denied or ignored. Living with gratitude emphasizes our strengths and our gifts. It opens the way to possibilities because it allows us to be grateful for what we already have. The room for regrets about what is missing from our lives decreases as the gratitude list grows. And the list begins here with us. In 2001, as I was mourning the death of my father, I wrote to my friend and colleague Gordon McKeeman. I described my own cumulative grief at losing so many dear friends and members in recent years. Gordon referred to that grief as one of the more wrenching aspects of the ministry, the pain of loss, separation, and grief that accompany each death, whether family or member of the congregation. It's the price we pay for the privilege of loving, he wrote. It's the price we pay for the privilege of loving. In truth, he added, I believe that death enhances life. It reminds us that life is limited, not endless. Things that are endless also tend to be valueless. Gordon believed that religion arises from the human confrontation with twin realities, the reality of being alive and the reality of having to die. His faith was rooted in universalism, a hallmark of which is hope. Hope, as Václav Havel describes it, is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. Hope is faith, holding out its hand in the dark. But that hope is sometimes difficult to grasp when we are grieving. Our Unitarian Universalist emphasis on life does not mitigate the grief we experience. Being grateful that a loved one is no longer suffering does not make us miss him or her any less. Nothing can make up for the absence of someone we love. In his book, United, U.S. Senator Cory Booker writes, "Hope confronts. It does not ignore pain, agony, or injustice. It is not a saccharine optimism that refuses to see, face, or grapple with the wretchedness of reality. You can't have active hope without despair, because hope is a response. Hope is the act of conviction that despair will never have the last word." Senator Booker makes the case that the virtues of empathy, responsibility, and action must guide our nation toward a brighter future. But these same virtues may be complicated by a sense of grief. With any change we make, we may lose, or feel uncomfortable at least, about some of what we had, such as the privilege that many of us experience because of the color of our skin. These last almost 2 years now have taught us a lot about loss and love and examining our lives through a different lens. The pandemic revealed disparities in access to adequate medical care, job security, child care, and racial equity. The murder of George Floyd unleashed protests and demonstrations seeking justice, not just for Floyd and his family, but for the complete restructuring of a law enforcement system that denies justice to people of color. Hope is the act of conviction that despair will never have the last word. Action is born of that hope, and with that action comes change, and therefore loss. Remembering that death is a part of life may help us to adapt to such losses, at least intellectually. It's possible that for a time, nothing will fill the void we experience. not well-meaning friends, not diversions or other fillers. Patience and allowing ourselves the time and space to accommodate our grief can help us remember them as they used to be, but see and hear them in some sense as they are now. Listening to what they say to us will gradually give way to gratitude, and yes, to hope. Hope is the dream of a soul awake, Samuel Johnson wrote. In this season of Thanksgiving, may the disappointments and limitations of our lives flow from us for a few moments. Let us make meaning from the little passings in our lives, that we may feel the flow of our own gratitude. Let us listen to the voices of loved ones gone before, and let us invite the hope that awakens our souls, that says we are alive, to reveal the gift of life, if only for a moment. And our spirits will be made new once again. Amen. I invite you to read responsively with me as the words appear on the screen. The womb of stars embraces us. Remnants of their fiery furnaces pulse through our veins.
We are of the stars, the dust of explosions
Cast across space. We are of the earth. We breathe and live in the breath of ancient plants and beasts.
Their cells nourish the soil. We build our communities on their harvest of gifts.
Our fingers trace the curves carved in clay and stone by forebears unknown to us.
We are part of the great circle of humanity, gathered around the fire, the hearth, the altar.
We gather anew this day to celebrate our common heritage.
May we recall with gratitude all that has been given us birth.
Living with gratitude means living out of our connections with one another. Living with gratitude opens the way to possibilities. In the stillness of a shared silence, may we recall with gratitude all that has given us birth. In this season of Thanksgiving, may the disappointments and limitations of our lives flow from us for a few moments, and may the gift of life stand revealed for a moment, and our spirits be made new once again.
A poem for this fine day. Hope. It is the resonant expression of our desires, our joys, and our fears. It is a wish for good things to come, a prayer for hard times and hardship to resolve, a yearning for something better. Hope has the power to connect us to the world around us, to each other, and to our higher selves. It is a quiet but powerful form of resistance to the gravitational pull of despair and to the bondage of personal isolation. It is an inner light that inspires us to reach, to endure, and to love.
Now, if you are on Zoom, please put your screen on gallery view. Rise in spirit in front of your camera and put your hands over your heart as we sing the closing circle song. Again, those of us in the sanctuary don't sing, just hum.
This day we come once more together as winds of earth call forth our names, my people all, from the strength of this this circle, may we come rejoicing, determined, united, come of life again.
For all that is our life, for daylight and darkness, for sunshine and rain, for the earth and all people, we offer deep thanksgiving. May we be inspired with gratitude for the wondrous gifts of life that are ours, and be filled with the resolve to share them with all who are in need. May we hold precious one another and the world which provides us with sustenance and beauty. And may a song of thanksgiving be on our lips now and in all the days of our lives. Blessed be.